Tyler, the Creator, is one of the most influential artists of the modern day. But getting to that title isn't the easiest part of his career.
Now let's look at his fall and rise over the years, and there's no better way to start than his 2009 Christmas Day debut, Bastard. Bastard was beloved by many Odd Future and Tyler, the Creator fans in general for being his first ever project with amazing sound, especially because he was only around 15 to 16 while recording this album. Even though, for how amazing it was at that time, especially considering that he was still a kid, critics gave it such a harsh time and harsh rhymes, you saw my rhyme there, because of its really disturbing lyrics, touching sensitive topics like sexual assault, rape, battery, just to name a couple so my video does not get in trouble with YouTube. Touching up on that topic, critics gave it such a harsh time because of those lyrics, and people thought that it was just another shock rapper that wouldn't get anywhere with his career, but oh boy would they be mistaken. Hard time and longtime fans absolutely adored this album, but it wasn't all bad because famous YouTube critic Anthony Fantano rated the album a strong 7 and also wished to see what he would do in the future in this clip.
Strong 7, a very strong 7 to a light 8 on this album. With more consistency, I'm really excited to see where Tyler, the Creator, and Odd Future are going in this Odd Future.
With mixed reviews, fans were still waiting to see if the next album would be better, worse, or comprehensible.
Goblin by Tyler, the Creator, is a perfect example to not go all the way in with shock value. At the time, most Odd Future fans fell in love with this album, but nowadays people still compare it to one of his worst albums that he's ever created, and critics agreed mostly with this. Critics absolutely hated his album. People from The Guardian calling his album vile, disgusting, and talking about the same topics, and mostly critics specifically hated the fact about how he was talking about sexual and horrible things as if it were just normal things. It was basically just a lot of the similar things from Bastard, but just worse. Calling his album vile and disgusting. And like I said before, most critics absolutely hated it. Talking about horrible, disgusting topics like sexual assault, rape, just to get, that out of the way. Even Tyler knew that this album was trash and publicly acknowledged that it was not one of his best pieces of work. Most people thought that he was still on the shock train and were just going to ride this out forever. Tyler wanted to eventually win awards like Best Up-and-Coming Artist by MTV. Critics called it disgusting, and I feel like this is where Tyler turned a new leaf, especially in his next album, Cherry Bomb. Cherry Bomb absolutely flopped, and people calling it a disgusting piece of trash, with it just being a straight bunch of piles of just experiments from Tyler, because most people thought that, he couldn't escape this norm of being a shock artist, and he tried to prove himself. Beats were absolutely amazing, but the things that critics did not like about this album was the lyrics. Tyler and people felt that he was being pushed into a box of just being a shock artist, and Tyler wanted to break out of that box and break out of that norm. So what he thought would be a good idea is spending back and trying to reinvent himself, lyrically and, by making beats. Some of the beats on this are amazing, such as the beat from Def Camp, the Brown Tains of Latifah, just to name a couple. Again, this one had very mixed reviews with not that many negative things being said by press. Some fans loved it, some fans hated it, but most people hated this album, and Tyler felt trapped in a box. He wanted to break out of this box and be the best artist that he possibly could be. So that's why he reinvented himself in one of his most sensitive albums ever, Flower Boy. Flower Boy was not only just an amazing album, it again turned a new leaf for Tyler where he was more sensitive, and he talked about topics that weren't just about rape or assault. He talked about his happy, his sad, his mad. It's basically Tyler expressing himself in this album, which critics absolutely adored. older Odd Future fans absolutely hated this album because it wasn't the same rape jokes that he would make on his others. But he felt from the effects of Cherry Bomb that if his next album flopped, that he would not break out of a box. He would just be stuck making these same songs, that he would never achieve anything. But Flower Boy was such an amazing album with very little by press, very little, negative comments, because Tyler was a genius by marketing this album because, well, it wasn't his same, oh, funny rape. That album was raw emotion. Emotion that can't be captured by making fun of sexual assault for the 50 millionth time in an album. This was himself. This was his passion, that he not only retrained himself on how to write, how to make beats, he was the definition of amazingness in 2017 with his most popular song to date, See You Again with Kali Uchis. I forgot to mention this because I didn't bring up Wolf, but he signed with Columbia and Sony to make, his dream come true. He didn't want to be taken as a shock artist anymore. He was taken seriously. And he definitely was. Flower Boy was probably his still most popular album and paved the way for his best album, Igor, to come out. And after Igor, there was Call Me If You Get Lost, Chromacopia, Don't Tap the Glass. And all of those albums are amazing, and they're definitely better than whatever shock that he was on there back in the day, not discrediting him back in the day. That was his rise. And I feel like if he never changed, that he wouldn't have matured as an artist. He would have been stuck in the same norm. He would have probably still making like shock. I'm happy to see him evolve as an artist. I'm happy to see his raw emotion and talent go into some of his future albums. And I feel like it's always been seen for him. And I feel like if he were never to break out of that box, we would have never had such amazing artists. Tyler inspired so many people. And I'm just happy to see him, for lack of better words, to bring out his flower, growing his inner flower. And now we have such an amazing artist that we all, are enjoying, we're all listening to. And I feel like if Tyler never broke out of that box, we would have been stuck.